Good morning, everyone. If I could ask for your attention, please. Thank you and welcome to our 8th annual lecture on aging. My name is Elton Bordenave, and I'm director of the Aging Studies Project here on the Mesa campus. And my sole purpose here this morning is to introduce our president, Dr. Magruder. So without further ado, I'll give you President Magruder.
Thank you. And this seems a little unusual. I usually see the students there, and I'm on the TV here. So this is the first time for me to give you and to give our university the welcome to this great event. I'm sure that you probably participated in some in the past. We've had 7 tremendously effective lectures at these events, and I'm 76 years old, and I'm appreciating these lectures more every day. And I've got to make sure we're in Bill and make sure they take good care of me. And I want to let you know that this is an initiative that is really associated with our strategic plan, as well as the initiative that the board has and the university has dealing with geriatrics, elderly, aging, and issues that are extremely important to all of us. And I just want to welcome everybody here, and I appreciate your presence. I want to also mention that we have another introducer in just a moment, and it's Dr. Michael Crean. I think most of you know him. He's a pretty impressive person. He is, even now, he's worked with Republican and Democratic administrators in Washington, and he has a permanent appointment. Those are hard to get, a permanent appointment on the faculty in a university in Ireland. And then he's been around. He's the founding person to start our program. And Michael Crean is an impressive young man. And Michael, are you there? Let's see. Are you there, Michael?
Hi.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, too. Do you have to hold the button or what? Okay, we should be on. Okay, we're on. I just wanted to say to Dr. Magruder, if you can hear me, that we in the Aging Project are extremely grateful to him for the leadership he has given to our university in the last 5 years. And during that 5 years, he has made himself available to us, you know, scrounging little faculty types pushing forward with our little project. He has been there for us, has listened to us, and has supported us tremendously. So we are very grateful to Dr. Magruder for his 5 years of leadership at this university, and we want to congratulate him on the tremendous work he has done during that 5 years. So thank you, Dr. Magruder, and you know how much we appreciate your leadership of our university. As Dr. Magruder said, my name is Michael Creedon, and I am from the Republic of Ireland, in case you didn't know. But I have had the privilege to be the chairman of the Aging Studies Project since its inception back in 2003. And it's my privilege to welcome all of you eating males and females to this program this afternoon. Thank you for being here. It would be useless to put this program on if you hadn't taken the time to share your lunchtime with us and participate. So thank you. We have now hundreds of students at ATSU participating in community outreach to elders in both Mesa and Kirksville. We are helping older people with falls prevention. We're helping them with nutrition management post-hospital, with Banner Hospital, particularly in Mesa. We're doing house calls here in Kirksville. And so we are doing very active outreach to the community and ensuring that our students actually encounter old people as part of their education process. And we thank all of you who are participating in that program. Thank you for your involvement. We're also developing educational modules for use over the internet and also for use in the classroom. And we're rapidly expanding the modules dealing with things like elder abuse, dealing with things like nutrition and the elderly, dealing with things like pharmacology and older people, And so we urge you to get to be aware of these modules and make use of them either in the classroom or elsewhere as part of your process of being ready to serve an aging society. We have 40 million people over 65 this year, and almost 80 million in the baby boom, the leading edge of which is 65 this year. 10,000 people per day are hitting their 65th birthday in the US of A. So we are facing an enormous challenge in the course of your life as a professional. We need you to realize that this society needs you to be committed to serving a very rapidly aging community. And we welcome the challenge, and we hope you join us in meeting that challenge. So just know that we want you to think about gerontology and geriatrics as an essential component of your education as you move forward. I would like to move on and introduce our speaker. And our speaker is Dr. Christa Hojlo, who is the National Director of the Veterans Administration Community Living Centers, and she's also Director of the State Veterans Home Clinical and Survey Oversight Program at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. She's a licensed nursing home administrator as well. Dr. Hojlo is a recognized leader in the field of long-term care, and her master's and her doctorate were both achieved at the School of Nursing at the Catholic University of America in Washington, while I was serving at the CUA Institute on Aging. She was finishing her master's and her doctorate there some years back for both of us. So I welcome her to the campus, and I think that you're in for a very informative and hopefully a challenging presentation. And so with that, welcome Dr. Hojlo. Thank you for coming here to be with us.
Thank you, Dr. Creighton. Let's see, where is my little marker here? Well, good afternoon, everyone. Wherever you are, in both places. Whoops. Okay. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be here. So am I still, where's Dean? Am I still okay? See, I like to start my lectures out talking to the back because see how those front rows are always empty? And for some reason, a lot of us, including me, like to sit in the back. And so as a speaker, I like to speak to the people in the back first, because usually most speakers speak to the people in the front all the time. So I really want to speak to you first. I'm speaking to everybody, but you know, those of you who are back here right now are special. So I titled my lecture, Caring for the Aging, Options, Opportunities, and Outcomes. Now, I use the word aging deliberately because when does aging start? What's aging anyway? Getting older, but when does aging really start? In utero. And you know what happens? Most of the time, when people find out that there's a little human being growing in there, we get very excited about the trimesters and the growth and development of that little person in there. And then that person is born, and then we ooh and ah and say, oh my gosh, that baby is so beautiful, or those twins, or those triplets. We know somebody here had twins. and then we keep saying, oh my gosh, that baby's growing so fast. Look at, here she can walk now, and they can do this. And then the next thing we know is that baby goes to school. That baby's aging. And you know, as the baby's going through that aging process, there are things that happen. Some are good and some are difficult and challenging for us as we watch that, and they're difficult and challenging for that child. And then that child keeps growing and growing, and then they go to high school, and then they graduate, and then they go to college, or they go to work, and we're, oh, look at what my child is doing, isn't this exciting? The whole time that baby's body is changing, body, mind, and spirit is changing, that baby's growing. No longer call that person a baby, but the fact of the matter is we celebrate every single milestone of that child. And then that child becomes what we call an adult. And then somewhere during the 40s and 50s, the hair starts to change color, and sometimes we try to hide it because that's a symbol of the aging process no longer being fun. Okay, that's a milestone that starts to instill a little fear in us. What's the fear ultimately that maybe my life is starting to take a different road? Maybe I'm starting to recognize the fact that maybe I'm no longer invincible. Maybe someday I will die. Now, we know people die young. We know babies die sometimes in utero, sometimes but the normal process is that this is what happens to us. We reach a peak, and then suddenly our body starts to change where we're no longer happy with the changes, and it feels like it's starting to decline. But really what happens during that time is that hopefully our spirit and something inside of us starts to bloom and blossom. The wisdom starts to come through of all that process below. But what happens in society and what happens in healthcare very often is that many of us become afraid of, particularly of the very frail, fragile elderly. I have a relative that's 104 years old, and she's living with my sister, and she's fine. She's fully cognitively intact, and guess what? She takes no medications other than an occasional Tylenol or aspirin for pain. Now, there are more people who are living past 100 these days. And as Dr. Creedon explained, many of us are going to be caring for people who are very old and into those later stages. So it is time now for you to start paying attention to that process of aging and start recognizing that we no longer really need to fear caring for those people in those later years. But what's important is that we start learning, but not just learning in our heads, but as you deal with people who are in those later years. Recognize that aging is a normal process, and I will reiterate that again, and that aging is really okay. So I'm going to try to talk about some specific interventions and some specific, as I say here, options, opportunities, and outcomes about aging. The other thing I want to say is that I had a wonderful opportunity yesterday to meet many of you, and then this morning I was roaming around, and I recognized that you represent the community, the school community, and I'm very impressed with the person-centered approaches that these universities, that these campuses take about caring for people and providing services. And so I want to commend you for that, and I want to commend you for the whole notion of the fact that this is an interdisciplinary campus and that everybody has something to bring to the table in providing care and services for those who are, particularly as we become frail and fragile. So caring for the aging, options, opportunities, and outcomes. So I'm going to stick around the front now, so it's been nice seeing those of you in the back. I like to go back further, but I understand the microphones won't take me back there. So the overall goals today are, I would like to use my work in the Department of Veterans Affairs as the context for my presentation, because I think that's what we're doing in VA today really is cutting edge. And we are the largest national health system. We're the largest health system in the country, and we are a national health system. I'd like to recognize the fact that this is an interdisciplinary audience, as I just said, and that you're a learning community. And I'd like to just simply share some insights about healthy aging. Some of you may already know some of these things. Some of you hopefully will gain some new insight from what I'm sharing today. The specific objectives for this lecture today, and I think I have, what, 30 minutes left now? Is that about right? 40? Okay. So we're going to explore some options available to facilitate the highest practicable level of well-being. What does that mean? That's a very important word. This came out of the Omnibus Reconciliation Budget Act of 1989. That actually was a Nursing Home Reform Act. And highest practicable level of well-being means that, for example, if somebody has a dementia, and you know certain dementias really have, once it's there, it's usually progressive, right? So what we do is we recognize who this person is. We know they have a dementia. Of course, we know that disease and diagnosis does not define the human being. And I think you're learning that in your programs. None of us are about we're not our diagnoses. And the highest practicable level of well-being is that this person is never going to be cured of their dementia, at least from what we know now. But what is the highest level of well-being that this person, given their debilitated state, can have? That's important. Or somebody who's comatose, somebody who's at the end of life. What is the highest practicable level of well-being? Somebody who is on their deathbed, literally, and isn't moving, isn't conscious. but they're in that process of dying. Highest practicable level of well-being is that they are gently touched, that they don't develop pressure ulcers, that they have loved ones around them if that's their choice, that we know what their choice is, that they're not in pain. Do you see what I mean by highest practicable level of well-being? Very important concept, because we think, or we're programmed to believe that we have to cure all, and that's not the case. Some things are not curable. Dying is a normal part of living. Very important truth. We're going to talk about identifying opportunities for the community of healthcare professionals, that's you and me, to facilitate healthy aging. And in terms of outcomes, I'd just like to explore some possibilities that are out there, particularly the last goal. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the nursing home industry in the country. And I asked some questions about what was happening in Kirksville in nursing homes. And I'd like you to at least be aware of some of the possibilities and potential for where nursing home, the industry is moving, guided by myself, working together with the people at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Pioneer Network, and other groups around the country who are very passionate about doing something about the nursing home industry in this country. That group really needs a lot of work. And you all have the potential and the possibility to make some good interventions here. So again, the VA experience will serve as a platform for addressing a lot of these objectives. First, recognize the options. So in VA, what we talk about when we talk about providing services for the elderly, we used to talk about a continuum of care. Well, a continuum is a straight line, and you're here, or here, or here, or here, and yeah, you can float back and forth. But now we talk about a spectrum of services, more of a circle, and that people who need services, we're talking about people needing services, not necessarily direct care interventions. We're not talking about, for example, if a person is in a hospital and they no longer can go home, we don't talk about where are we going to put him or her. We need to get him out of this acute care hospital. Where are we going to put him? They can't go home. We're talking about what does this person need for services? What happened to them that brought them to the hospital? What do they need now? And what is available in the community for them to be able to achieve their highest practicable level of well-being? So it's a different way of looking at where are we going to put him or her. It's not about putting anywhere. And you know, most of us and our loved ones and our elders really want to be at home. We're going to talk a little bit later about what is home anyway. But the geriatrics and extended care is what we call our program. Spectrum of services includes all of these things: institutional care and non-institutional care. And I've had the opportunity to meet a number of you representing the community here in Kirksville. And you have components of these, particularly the non-institutional. The institutional, those are nursing homes. We call our nursing homes community living centers because we're shifting the paradigm of how care is delivered, and I cannot tolerate the term nursing home. It brings negative stereotypes. It's nursing home level of services, but we really are changing the culture, and I'll talk about that much later. State veterans homes and then the community nursing home program, those are all institutional care. But I'd really like to focus for a moment of what's available in non-institutional care. Now, I know that you have an opportunity to do home visits, house calls. And I understand that for the most part, your house calls right now are with the well elderly. Is that correct? Did I get that right? Okay. And so it's important to get a baseline. It's an important place to start so that you get comfortable and you understand how an interdisciplinary team interfaces in the home of a person. Now, in VA, what we do is we have a program called home-based primary care, where we actually have an interdisciplinary team of providers that serves as the doctor's office or the clinic in the person's home. And we visit people once a month. Now, people meet the criteria for home-based primary care, but these are people who can't get routinely to a primary care doctor or a clinic. And sometimes they're in rural settings, sometimes they're in urban settings, but even in urban settings, sometimes people just can't get to a doctor on a regular basis because of their situation, and they would otherwise be in a nursing home. And where do most of us want to be? We want to be in our home, receiving the services that keep us at the highest practicable level of well-being, if that's possible. So that's one program that we offer. And then we're also involved in PACE programs, medical foster home. It is a foster home service. So for people who need personal care and would otherwise end up in a nursing home, don't need high-level nursing, skilled nursing care, instead of going to a nursing home, people in the community are willing to adopt people into their home and provide the personal care that is needed there. So there are other, and you can read these, but so we really are focusing on non-institutional care and trying to prevent people from having to go to a nursing home if it's not necessary. And if the resources in a community like yours are available, let's keep people as close to home and in a home-like setting as much as possible. There's some myths about home. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dr. Bill Thomas, who started the Greenhouse Project in nursing homes several years ago. But Bill Thomas talks about, he and I have had conversations, I don't know what he's published on this, but this notion of aging in place, we all think that's the panacea. I have my home. I've lived in my home for 35, 45, 50, 60 years. This is my home. It's a big home. I can hardly take care of it. My spouse and I are frail and fragile. We are not leaving. So daughter or son goes into the home is a mess. It's, you know, you open up the refrigerator and it's grungy. And I actually had that experience myself with Mary. She was my dad's companion for 20 years. And after my dad died, her little senior apartment really went to pot. It was horrible. And she would not let us help her clean it. And we, out of respect for her, we kind of cleaned little things when she wasn't looking. But we always asked, and she said no. So there's a very fine line there. But the fact of the matter is, and we need to prepare ourselves and we need to prepare our loved ones for this now. Because it's very hard to extract somebody from their home unwillingly. But the fact is, aging in place is not necessarily what we all idealize it to be. And sometimes it's better for somebody to be in a situation where they have some socialization and they have safe food and safe surroundings than being, you know, alone in a grungy apartment or a grungy house where it isn't safe, and then the trauma of extracting from there. So this requires some thought and planning early on. And for those of you who are dealing in healthcare and dealing with patients, it's important to broach these subjects maybe sometimes even before the hair starts to turn white. You know, are you thinking, you know, your empty nest syndrome? Are you starting to think about what you're going to do with your house and how you're planning for your later years? Conversations that need to start today. You need to start thinking about them today for yourselves, your loved ones, and your patients. Nursing homes, there is a myth that they're institutional warehouses. Well, we changed the name in VA because that's the stereotype. And I will talk later about some of the innovations in the nursing home industry, starting at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, as well as the Department of Veterans Affairs and communities around the country that are really moving to change that. And then, of course, assisted living. This is a conundrum because daughter knows and mother knows they can no longer sustain living in the apartment or the house. So they walk into this assisted living facility. It's beautiful chandeliers, nice foyer, lovely dining room. Look at that, a full exercise program, a swimming pool, and the water's warm. And they've got this and they've got that. But what happens to mother in the course of the day? So mother moves in there, nice little apartment. She's isolated all day long. She may have a mild dementia. There's not a sufficient activities program. It is out-of-pocket pay. So again, I'm not downplaying assisted living. I think it's a very important component of services. What I would want you as the community of care providers to understand that assisted living, again, is not a panacea. You really have to understand something about the assisted living programs and know that you want to go and you want to have mother in an assisted living facility. First of all, assess his or her functional capacities, and is she going to be able to have the socialization and the interaction that feeds the human spirit? Because in aging, what becomes more important than the physical body is the human spirit. And frankly, what also happens in aging, and I do this to myself, you know, when I look in the mirror, I don't see Christa at my current age, which is I just turned 64. I don't see a 64-year-old, whatever a 64-year-old is supposed to look like. I don't see that. I see myself in my 20s and 30s. And you know, I look at those magazines, you know, those clothes magazines, I said, wow, you know, I'd like to wear that. And I try, I can't wear some of those things anymore. But, you know, we don't, my 104-year-old relative, Mary, people say to her, you don't look like 104, and she laughs. She no more sees herself as a 104-year-old than I see myself as a 64-year-old. Do you see? So aging is really in the mind and heart and spirit of the person. Now, I see, when I look at Mary, I see a frail, fragile person. She is cognitively intact, but she walks with a walker. Her hearing is mostly gone. She has what I think is just the most horrible disease, and that's macular degeneration. Her vision is mostly gone, and she used to crochet and used to like to do a lot of things that you need vision for. She can't do those things anymore, but she doesn't see herself as frail and fragile as we do. So we have learned not to hover and protect her. Yeah, Mary could fall. She has fallen. Yeah, she broke her hip once, but she survived it, and we don't have to hover over her. What we need to do is support, love, and care for her in humane ways and feed her spirit and keep her moving, keep her busy, keep her exercised so she doesn't fall. So, question to you is, who wants to go to a nursing home? Community living center. Any institution, most of us don't. So, you know, we know that some of the myths and some of the facts are that there are quality issues in many of our institutions in our nursing homes today. Loneliness, isolation, and boredom has been written about. And as I said to you earlier, the nursing home industry as an industry is starting to pay attention to some of these things. So whatever we can do to keep people out of nursing homes, we want to do that, but there is a population that is still going to need institutional care and the supports necessary there. People share bedrooms now, institutions, and we are in VA trying to build we're trying to build small houses where people have private bedrooms. There's a lack of privacy often. Lack of independence is the biggest fear. And actually, as we age, lack of independence at any stage of aging really becomes a fear. So recognizing the options, there is a nursing home renaissance. Now, you may or may not be experiencing that here in Kirksville yet, but you as potential leaders of this community, you as leaders, some of you are leaders in this community, you as potential leaders in this community or other communities need to recognize that you actually have the opportunity to do something about that and enhance that renaissance. There are facts that are driving change in aging and aging studies and what happens to us as we age. And one of those facts is baby boomers. I'm one of those. And I am clear on what I want and don't want. And I don't want to be dumped into a back ward of a nursing home, sharing my bedroom with somebody else that I don't know. And home is where I want to be. So again, we have to start thinking about options and choices now. And as I said, not everyone can be in their own home. And institutions can deinstitutionalize, but there are so many options that are available right now before people have to go into an institution. So the goal and the focus of geriatric services is not cure, but looking at the perspective of what does this person need to meet their highest level of practicable level of well-being. And services can be provided in a variety of settings, and the goal of services is least costly, least restrictive, and most appropriate for this person and his family. We know that there are negative stereotypes about aging. I'm not going to focus on these. And I will say that VA has had a long history of caring for the aging, including our geriatrics research and educational clinical centers that we call GRECs, where they have engaged in research from the 1970s and continue to do that so that whatever is blooming and blossoming in the field of geriatrics in this country still has that focus of research, education, clinical centers. We actually train, we have residencies available for physicians and other health care practitioners in our GRECs. We've published some work. I have some references for you at the end that contain a lot of information if you are interested in getting those references. But the focus of geriatrics and extended care in Department of Veterans Affairs is to offer people options and alternatives to institutionalization to the extent possible. And when institutionalization is not an option, that institutional care is as humane and as reflective of home as is humanly possible. So seize the opportunities. Okay. One of the things that I really embrace and love about Department of Veterans Affairs is that we really are interdisciplinary. And I was on a conference call this morning, a national conference call, and I didn't know half the people on the call, but there were people from IT, there were physicians, there were nurses there. We actually work very interdisciplinary because we've recognized the fact that there is not one discipline who has it all. I was speaking this morning from, I forget your name, from the Alzheimer's, Joette? Okay. And we're talking about people with dementia. And you know, sometimes dementia can be diagnosed in somebody very young, like in their 50s. And so sometimes the diagnosing team, the physician, nurse practitioner, whoever's doing the diagnosis, doesn't recognize the resources that are available. And so in the office, if there's a nurse in the office or a social worker in the office that does know something about those services, he or she can go to the practitioner and say, look let's refer so-and-so to such and such an agency. They can help the family, they can help this person live highest practicable level of well-being and support very early on in the dementia. It's difficult enough to have a dementia diagnosis in an 80-year-old or a 70-year-old. It's very difficult in a 50-year-old. And that does happen. So this is why it's important that every member of the interdisciplinary team use your strengths to help each other identify sources and resources, and use your strengths, the best of your discipline, to bring forth in the care of others. And I think the other piece is that it's very important to be conscious of and assess function. Because actually, as people age and people develop chronic disease, again, chronic disease isn't specific necessarily to those who age, but it does happen for older, particularly older people. Function is the key. And there are two levels of function. One is activities of daily living, those that are just basically essential to life: bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, mobility. Those are very basic personal care kinds of activities of daily living. So very important to assess, and there are some valid and reliable instruments that help you assess those. Then there are the instrumental activities of daily living. Can this person go to the bank and manage money? Can they cook? Can they answer the phone? Can they pay their bills? Oh, the sound. Okay, sorry. Can they pay their bills? What can they do to manage their household? So in order to be able to assess and determine what level of services this person needs, that's probably the most basic level of assessment. Now, I know that all of you who are in the programs right now, the educational programs, are learning different types of assessments. Some of you are learning how to assess and diagnose medical conditions. Some of you are learning social work skills. Some of you are learning a whole variety of skills. But assessment is the foundation, and assessment of function is the foundation of geriatric care. I can't say that any more strongly. That is the basis. And if you become really excellent in anything, that's the key to helping determine what services would be most helpful to a person who is moving into that frail, fragile, elderly situation. So if you don't remember anything else from today, and I have to remind myself of this too when I see frail, elderly people, I always have to remember that aging is not an illness. People can develop illness and chronic conditions at any time of life, including in utero. So aging is not an illness. Aging is not abnormal. We are not all going to be staying at the stage of life at which most of us are today. And as every day that we live longer, we age. And I want to live to be 120 at least. Some people will say, oh no, But that's up to you. But the fact of the matter is aging is not abnormal. It happens to all of us. And we also know that persons are living longer and they're living better longer than we did in the past. Our census of nursing homes is significantly decreasing. So there are fewer, we're overbedded with nursing home beds in this country. We have more nursing home beds than we need because there are more growing options for staying away from institutions. There are more options in the community. And, what? Oh, stay closer here, okay. I want to be closer to the group. Okay, I understand, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. So aging is a process from birth to death, as I explained earlier. And as I said earlier, during that process of aging, the human person is transforming. Human body is changing. And you know, athletes, what is it, 25 to 30, you know? Athletes start to diminish in their abilities. So, and we get surprised at the 40-year-old baseball player. 40 is not old by any means. But the fact of the matter is our bodies start to change, and I don't need to go into all the physiological aspects of that. And by the way, that was one of the things I learned yesterday from your program. Your program is very good. It focuses, especially the DO program, focuses very much on anatomy and physiology. Anatomy. The better you know that anatomy, the more you know what's going on physiologically, the better care and treatment you will have for individuals. So I respect that. Let's talk a little bit about the outcomes. First of all, what's really important in achieving good outcomes of care is the alignment of professionals providing services, professionals together providing services for those in later part of life. I can't overstress the interdisciplinary component of this more. And again, I'm very impressed with that focus in your programs here. Caring for the aging is so interdisciplinary, and what the emphasis there is the fact that we're so complex. The individual human person, we're not just the sum of our parts. We're the sum of parts that we see and the sum of those parts that we don't see. Our cultures, our spirituality, our upbringing, which forms our culture, our stereotypes, our norms, our experiences. And in the care setting, we have to recognize the impact of all of those things. Otherwise, we're taking care of the limb, the body, the broken part, and missing what does this mean? What meaning does this hold for that person? And so it's really important to recognize the impact of a lifelong journey on an individual's ability to function and the individual's desire to heal and achieve their highest practicable level of well-being. And sometimes we have to ask people, what's most important for you? What will make you the happiest at this time of your life? And sometimes that's what we have to go after in order for somebody to heal. And most of the time, it is not one individual provider that can achieve or reach that. It's somebody, a provider team, somebody on that team that has the best relationship with that person can help discover that. We need to recognize that aging and age-related changes, they're not a medical problem and a medical diagnosis. They may contribute to it, but it's not the age-related changes that are the medical problem. And again, we need to treat the person, not just the diagnosis. You know, it's that old notion, person survived, the surgery was successful, but the patient died. It's not about the diagnosis. We need to treat the impact of the diagnosis on the person's ability to function and live life fully until they die. Thank you, 15 minutes, okay. I appreciate that. Okay, so part of the alliances of care and part of our opportunities in working together is, first of all, to acknowledge our own aging. Each of us really needs to look at ourselves and say, where have I come from? Where am I going? Recognize that journey. Recognize the journey internally. Recognize the journey in your body. There are some things that, you know, as we age, I can't, and it's a horrible discovery, but there are certain things I can't do anymore. So we have to recognize it in ourselves in order to see it, that process and the meaning of that process in another. So always start from where are you? Identify the normalcy of aging. We said that already. Understand the perspective from your discipline. What does your discipline have to contribute to the care and services of individuals? Because each of our disciplines has specific nuances that another discipline doesn't have. Not one single discipline has it all. And it's only when we come together that we can really achieve goals and work with the resident, the patient, the family in achieving the goals for health and well-being that they wish. Learn and respect the skills of other disciplines. And again, I'm just in awe of your programs here that you do a lot of interdisciplinary interaction. And so, and this is not necessarily common in healthcare education throughout the country. And I've had a lot of experiences, as I know my colleagues have, that really you are in a very unique situation, and I hope you can, after you've finished with your studies here, that you can take that forward. Very important concept. So, I think I missed a slide. Did I miss a slide? No. I think that slide had a photograph that didn't come through. Let me talk a little bit about the paradigm shift that's happening in nursing home care, since I only have 15 minutes. We're calling it culture transformation. It's not change, it's transformation. How many of you, I've got this line here that I can't go over. How many of you are familiar with Thomas Kuhn's paradigm shift theory? Well, some of you. Okay, I would encourage you to read about paradigm shift. It's very important because paradigm shift is not about change. It's really going down deep inside of your cultural norms, the artifacts that shape your healthcare delivery culture, the healthcare delivery culture in this country. Taking that out, looking at it, and asking yourselves questions. Is this working today, and should it continue to work? Okay, that's very wrenching, especially for those of us who have been in healthcare for a long time. I am used to, as a provider, saying, I am nurse, I'm a nurse practitioner, I am X, Y, and Z, I'm a physician. You are patient. I know what is best for you. And it's nonverbal, but it's top down. You better take those medicines. You better do X, Y, and Z. No, it's a partnership. And in institutional care and in nursing home care and in hospitals, we are so used to this old medical model, as we call it. Now, I'm not talking about medicine being bad. Okay, please don't misunderstand me when I use the term. When I use the term medical model, I'm talking about the disease and cure of the disease is everything, and it is not. It's in partnership. What does this disease, what does this diagnosis mean for this person, and how is this person going to live life fully after? So that he or she is not defined by that diagnosis. It is important for those of you who are diagnosticians, becoming diagnosticians, to make the best diagnosis possible. And so you've got the tools here, you're learning those tools. But the fact of the matter is, it's got to be a partnership between yourself and the person that you're serving. So when we talk about culture transformation, we're really talking about transformation in the way we care providers, that means me too, think about the way we deliver services to those we serve. It's a transformation in the way, it's a transformation in the medical care and the healthcare delivery system in this country, because it cannot continue to be top down. How many of us have gone to our physicians and our physicians have told us, stop smoking, change your dietary habits, you know, all those things, lose weight, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. So, but there's something missing in the interaction. Does anybody ever ask you, you know, your blood pressure's high, your blood sugar's high, tell me what that means to you. Do you care? Now, unless you have a reason to stop smoking or change your eating habits that really has an impact for you, you're probably going to go back and do the same old stuff, because that's what we're seeing. We have an epidemic, as you know, of obesity in this country. Are we able to get underneath it and find out what is the reason for this? And very few practitioners are really sitting down with somebody and saying, look tell me, are you happy the way you are? What is, you know, if you continue this way, you have young children. Does this mean anything to you? We have to start probing and asking questions. So we're talking in the nursing home industry about a notion called person-centered care, but that person-centered care needs to permeate the healthcare delivery system. And yesterday when Catherine, is Catherine in here? Catherine, are you here? Where is she? Oh, there you are. I didn't recognize you. Things that Catherine told me about the DO program anyway, just absolutely oozed with person-centered care. This is about the person. This is about the human being. Yes, I'm discovering anatomy. I'm discovering physiology. I have to know all this stuff. But it's all so that I can provide the best service to this person. Thank you. And again, the partnership between the provider, and this is the whole provider community, and the person is critical in helping the person achieve their highest practicable level of well-being. It's that partnership in health. And this is what we're moving toward in the nursing home industry. In the nursing home component, on my right, your left, you see the traditional medical model where it's all about the staff provides treatments. Residents follow the facility routine. You know, we call people in nursing homes residents, not patients. That's deliberate. So if you're a nursing home resident, you're going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to be there at 5, even though you're a late sleeper like me. And I'm going to shake you out of your deep sleep, and I'm going to give you a bath because that's my routine and that's what I have to do. See, that's the wrong thing to do, because the studies, the evidence base is also showing that if people don't get enough sleep and if they're not in their own sleep cycle, they're going to resist care. So you have fighting, spitting, kicking, all those kinds of things, especially with people with dementia. Staff float, it doesn't matter who's assigned to who. So a whole series of things I'm not going to go through. Hopefully you can get these on the computer later on. But you'll see in the new transformed model, the transformation of the culture of care in nursing homes in this country. And this needs to float into hospitals as well. It's about nurturing the human spirit. Yes, we provide technical care and we have to be competent in that. It's not enough. You can provide great wound care, but the person's in pain. You can provide great wound care, you can do great IV therapy, but the person is lonely, isolated, and bored. What kind of life is that? It's horrible. We're talking about permanent assignments. We're talking about assigning the same nursing assistant to the same resident every day for as long as that resident is in that facility. What a new idea. If any of you have ever been in a hospital, or even if your provider's in a hospital and you try to find some answers from somebody, well, what was the person, well, I don't know what the person was like yesterday because I didn't care for them yesterday, and the day before and the day before had different staff members caring for them every day. Not acceptable, not good for continuity of care. Nursing home industry has taken that on. Spontaneous activities, sleep-wake cycles. We no longer wake people up at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. We wait until they wake up normally, and we set their medication and treatment schedules according to their wishes, not ours. Whole different approach to care in a nursing facility. Implications, well, the person served is a partner in care. This is in nursing homes we're talking. We're also talking about the fact that since we're changing the form of care delivery, we also have to change, we're changing the function of care delivery. So we're changing how we interact and interface with residents in nursing homes. So we need to change the form. So in new construction in nursing homes, we're no longer building long quarters, hospital-like institutions. We're moving into small house construction, and I'll describe that in a second. This is a picture of one of our community living centers in Puerto Rico where the residents routinely get to the beach, even highly impaired residents. Again, we're moving toward meaningful activities, meaningful use of time. People in Puerto Rico like the water. Nursing homes and nursing home services have evolved, and we're understanding them a lot better. We understand that there's a component of short-stay skilled care. People can then go be placed someplace else. Thank you. Rehabilitation, hospice, respite, and then we have traditional long-stay services, which most of us are familiar with, that people stay there for the rest of their life. And we're trying to provide these services using a model that we call the holistic approach to transformational change, or the HATCH model. And the model looks something like this, where we look at our work practices, our care practices, and the environment with the resident in the center. And our nursing assistants in VA can talk about this model. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about work practices, care practices, and the environment of care, except to say that everything we do is we're trying to move away from the institutionalization of routines to the institutionalization of personalized care, so that the institutional component is not the priority. How we have always done it is not the priority. The form is changing. Architecture, color, light, sounds. We have a huge evidence base that informs us about the impact of these things on a resident's well-being. So the new model of care in nursing homes is about home, not home-like. It's not about home-like. We're trying to create home. And the cues that homes give to the person. Now, we know everybody has their own image of home, but there are, and we know your home and my home don't necessarily look the same. We're not in similar neighborhoods. However, we all understand when I say home, there are certain things, and there's been some research on that too, there are certain things that are critical about home. That notion of home: privacy, dignity, personal use of space, comfort. It's a well-being. It's a place of well-being that we all seek, and that's why the notion of separating from a home is so difficult. I want to show you a couple slides. Yes, this is a nursing home. These are called greenhouses. This is a nursing home. These are individual houses, 10 to 12 bedrooms. And when you go inside, I have some inside pictures, you go through a front door and nobody walks in there without ringing the doorbell if you don't belong in there or you have a key to get in. Let's see. Am I going the right direction here? I thought I had a couple other pictures that may not have come through. I'm sorry about that. I had some other pictures of what the interior of these homes looks like. And when you go in, you think you're in my home. There's a living room, dining room, kitchen, bedroom. No nurse stations, by the way. What happens in nurse stations? People hide behind them. So nursing homes are not hospitals. We cannot think of them as hospitals. They are not hospitals, although the traditional nursing home looks like a hospital. They should not look like hospitals anymore when people are renovating and rebuilding new. They're small homes. They have all of the accoutrements, and we're talking kitchens. We had to fight with the National Fire Protection Agency to make sure that we can have stoves, like home-type stoves. And you can make stoves safe. You can put on and off mechanisms on them, and even for people with dementia, you can have stoves. But the big thing is no nurse station. Oh yeah, this is some of the interior. So I'm sorry the lighting in this photograph isn't really good. I'll try to shift sides here so that everybody can see it. But as you can see, this looks like a regular, a nice kitchen. Maybe some of us don't have kitchens that look this nice, but the fact is this is a new house. Regular kitchen, living room with fireplace. There's a little den off to the side, living room space. There are bedrooms off the corridor, so you don't have somebody peering down corridors, sitting at a nurse station looking all the, you have people walking around interfacing with residents. So in summary, to be on time, am I on time? Okay, okay. I hope that I've explored, in this short period of time, I can't go into tremendous detail, but I hope that you have received a sense of some of the options that are available for folks as they're moving toward the later years in aging, as they become more frail and impaired, and for some folks who are younger who are frail and impaired as well. Hopefully, we've explored some opportunities for service delivery, most significantly the notion of interdisciplinary collaboration in care. We've looked at some outcomes when the options and opportunities combine to promote the highest level of practicable level of well-being. So I gave you some examples of what the nursing home industry is doing as an industry. Long way to go, but the fact is there are a number of coalitions around the United States now that are committed to transforming the culture of care in nursing homes in this country. So I'm going to say to you, many of you are in educational programs now where you're getting the best, you are the brightest and the best, and you're getting the best information. But sometimes what happens when you go out into practice, and I'm sure you're seeing this as you're doing some of your practicums, you're going to be tempted to slide back into what was, because that's the comfort zone. If you're really going to be transformational leaders in healthcare, you need to remember transformational language, and remember transformation is difficult. And I would definitely encourage you to read Thomas Kuhn's Paradigm Shift Theory. It's quite insightful. You can design and create together to make the future happen for our elderly citizens. Your influence is critical, but your influence will be ineffective unless you really start getting to understand that now. You have the power to design the future, and I encourage you to harness the power in yourself first. Recognize the power that you have, and then in each other as an interdisciplinary team. And I would say to you as we conclude that for the sake of those that you commit to serve, and you are committing to serve people of all ages, beginning in utero for some of you, recognize the options. Seize the opportunities and appreciate the outcomes. There is a lot going on around us today in our communities, in local communities, national communities. And you have those opportunities to seize and become part of those activities. So I thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, and it was definitely a pleasure to meet so many of you. References.